Hi, welcome to another episode of PhotoshopLightroomTV. I'm your host, Marek Mularczyk from SAItraining.co.uk, and this is episode 97 of PhotoshopLightroomTV, your video podcast about anything Photoshop, Lightroom, Bridge and photography related. This week I'm going to, welcome to a chilly episode. It's a chilly November day, at least here in the UK. Let me start with a Photoshop tutorial. And I'm going to talk about one of the new features in Photoshop CS6, one of the slightly less used features, auto-collapsible panels. Now, without further ado, I'm just going to jump into Photoshop and show exactly what I mean. Okay, so here I am inside Photoshop, and what I want to talk about this time is the auto-collapsible panels, something that's new in Photoshop CS6. Now let me start. One of the new features in Photoshop CS6 is the Properties panel. When you apply an adjustment, for example, or you work on a layer mask, Photoshop opens up the Properties panel. Especially with adjustments, in the previous versions of Photoshop, when you added an adjustment, like let's say, if I just select this background image, if I add a hue and saturation adjustment layer, in previous versions of Photoshop, the adjustment, in this case hue and saturation adjustment, will open in the Adjustments panel. Now in Photoshop CS6, it opens the Properties panel that's coming up automatically. So we got some auto-collapsible panels. Okay? So if I shift the hue for the background image, and I'll just click on another layer to deselect it, and it collapses automatically. Okay? So how you do it? Well, if you open the panel, okay, the Properties panel, every panel in Photoshop has a menu in the top right corner, including the Properties panel. And in here, if I just open the adjustment, hue and saturation. So as I have the panel open, the Properties panel here, if you right click next to the name, you get an option for auto collapse iconic panels. Okay? So when you have an iconic panel, so when you have a panel as an icon in here, whenever you add an adjustment, it comes up. So you just right click and set auto collapse iconic panels. And this works for any iconic panels in Photoshop, not just the Properties panel, but this is a good example because when you add one of the adjustments, Photoshop opens up the Properties panel, and when you move on to another adjustment, the Properties panel closes. So that's how you use auto collapse iconic panels in Photoshop CS6. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this Photoshop tutorial. I hope you've learned something new. If there's anything you want me to create, just let me know. You can easily contact me either via email from my website, SAItraining.co.uk or marekmularczyk.com, or just contact me through Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or LinkedIn. Now I'm going to show you a workflow between Bridge and Photoshop. But first, let me remind you about the Adobe event that runs in 2 weeks' time, Adobe Create Live. There are some new things coming into Photoshop CS6 for Creative Cloud customers. To find out more, join Adobe on 11th of December for a live event, Adobe Create Live. More details on my website, PhotoshopLightroomTV.co.uk. Or just go to Adobe website. Now let's jump into Bridge, and I'm going to show you some workflow when exporting PDFs from Bridge and then importing them into Photoshop. And I'm going to build on this next week. So this time we're going to start with Bridge. Okay, here I am inside Adobe Bridge CS6, and let's talk about exporting PDFs or creating and exporting PDFs from Adobe Bridge and importing them into Photoshop. I'm just going to find a folder with some images. So let's go to my 101 images. I've got a couple of images in here. So I'll just select all these images in here. For the PDF export, we'll need to jump into the output workspace. Okay. If you don't see it anywhere in here, what you can do is you can also use the menu. Let me just resize the Bridge interface because it went in the full screen. You can use the menu, window, workspace, and all these workspaces are here. So I've got these images selected. In the output panel on the right hand side, I'll set it as a PDF. I'm not going to go through all these settings, I'll just quickly create something here. So for the preset, I'll use web. For the size, maybe 1024 by 768, so it would fit nicely on tablets and all different screens and devices. Quality 72, that's perfect. Let's just click refresh preview to see what it looks like. I'm actually going to make it much narrower. So for the height, we'll make it 600. Click refresh preview. The image doesn't fit, but that's okay. We'll leave some white space. For the quality, I'll leave it in the maximum. For the layout, no margins, no spaces, and just one column. Well, actually, I can put all the images together. So I could just do, say, the all vertical. So I can make it 5 columns, 1 row. So I have all images. Now maybe make it even more narrower. So maybe 400 for the height. Looks better. Maybe even 350. 300 pixels. Okay, and scrolling down, no overlays, so no file name, no page number, that's fine, no header, no footer, nothing in here, no playback, or just save it. I'll export it to my desktop. I'll call that PDF export, and I'll just save. And in just a moment, Bridge will display a message saying that PDF generated successfully. So I'll click OK. I'll close Bridge for now. Go into Photoshop, go to File, Open, navigate to the desktop, and select the PDF export file. When you open PDFs or Illustrator files in Photoshop, you get this dialog box, Import PDF. I've got a preview that you can make bigger. Okay, so there's the preview of the images. It's on one page. You can also decide on the resolution, an image size, color mode. I'm just going to leave them on the defaults. I'll just click OK to open it here. I'm just going to use the embedded profile as RGB, that's fine. I'll click OK. And that's the image imported here into Photoshop from Bridge. If I just zoom in really close, the images are slightly pixelated because that's what they were originally. So that's okay, not going to worry about that. But here's the import, and one more thing I want you to notice is that there's no background. They're just images with no background behind. It looked like a white background in Bridge when we're exporting it, but it's actually just images on their own. So we could easily save it as PNG or just use it in designs. And that's again an example of a workflow between Bridge and Photoshop where you can export a set of images as a PDF from Bridge and then import it into Photoshop. I hope you enjoyed this one as well. I'm back, Marek Mularczyk from SAI Training.co.uk, one of the UK specialists in Adobe Certified Training. And that's it for this week, I'm afraid. I'm going to build up on the tutorial just done next week, next episode 98. But this is it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to visit my blog, PhotoshopLightroomBridge.co.uk or SAITraining.co.uk for all the details about my Adobe Certified courses. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.